All right, these are our potatoes. Now, what's really crazy and interesting about our potatoes is they are absolutely taking off and they are doing great. I mean, really good. They were a little slow to begin with, but it was only the ones that didn't have sprouts on them that were a little slow. The other side, which had sprouts, are actually doing excellent and were very quick to pop up. Now, I want to show you the other garden. Welcome to A Simple Life. Yes, we are going to take a look at my garden, and I'm going to talk about, in some ways, how it's failing. Now, there are things that are doing good in my garden, but they should be doing much better, and I know this. This is our first big failure. This was supposed to be broccoli, and I planted a bunch of broccoli and some kale in here, and I've gotten almost nothing. Now, part of that is not to say my planting methods or any of that. It actually has to do with slugs. So, I didn't realize what was happening, but as my broccoli was coming up, they were getting eaten by slugs. That's the first problem. The second problem is the problem with my compost, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, if we look over here at the lettuce, we got some heads of lettuce, look like they're doing pretty good. But then all my cabbage is being eaten off. That's the last row. It's all being eaten off. It's supposed to be Napa cabbage, and I have like Napa grasses. Once again, they are being affected by the overall problem I'm having with my garden. Next, we have our celery and our cucumbers. The cucumbers never really took off the way they should have. We got them, they're coming up, but they keep getting eaten. Some of them are doing okay, some of them took off, but they should be way bigger than this now. How do I know they should be bigger? Well, because I've actually started some plants in soil blocks, and my soil block plants are doing much better. That was the first thing that led me to this issue I'm having. The second thing that led me to the issue I'm having is my tomato plants. They're growing, but they don't look healthy. See, my tomato plants are growing. They're not growing super fast, but they just don't look super healthy. We got some plants that they don't look good. I mean, look at them, the poor things. This is what really led me to question what is going on. Everything in here just seems to be stunted. Stuff should be like twice as big as it is, if not 3 times in some cases. And it's not. Things just aren't growing at the rate they should be, and I was trying to figure out why. And I figured it out. And everybody told me not to worry about this one factor. All right, so let's talk about my compost, because we have an issue with the compost. And I was told over and over again that horse compost is really well balanced. You just have to make sure you don't have weed seeds. So I baked it off really good. I got it to the point where the compost itself wasn't putting off any extra heat. When I turned it over, it was very mature. It wasn't putting off any extra heat. It was just good compost. A little on the chunky side, but good compost. So I put it in here and I thought everything was going to be okay. Then we planted the plants and I started seeing stuff wasn't quite responding the way I thought it would be, the way I'd seen stuff in the past respond. Matter of fact, I planted 6 cucumbers down at the end of the tomatoes and they died within like a week. And I was like, this is really strange. Maybe something got to them. Maybe it was the way I did it. I didn't think it was. I'm not that bad of a gardener. So I went and got more cucumbers. Okay, I got cucumbers, and this was actually a pack of 3. There was 3 in a pack, and what I did was I split them the exact same way I did the other ones, and I put them in a mix that I was using for my soil blocks. Matter of fact, those were actually a little yellow when I bought them. And I actually bought them because they were a little yellow, and I was like, I want to see if I can add a little bit of nutrients to this and get these things to pop back. Because my cucumbers at the end, they went from yellow to dead, and they were healthy when I put them in. All right, so let's get back to the compost. Now, what do we put in our compost? Well, the only thing in there is horse manure and wood shavings. We don't use straw, but the wood shavings we get here are basically one type of shaving. Almost exclusively one type of shaving, and that is Doug fir. So Doug fir shavings are actually like 3.75 on the pH scale, which is very acidic. And so I'd heard, hey, listen, if you put compost down, it won't affect your soil, even if you have acidic wood shavings in there or wood chips in there, it won't affect it. Well, here's the difference. I'm planting in my compost. I'm not planting in the soil. The compost is what I'm planting in. And that is where we have the problem. I tested my compost and it came in very low, probably 5. And my soil block material is coming in at like 6 point something, almost 7. While my soil blocks are doing really good, my plants are not. Well, I figured all this out by trial and error. So what we're going to do is I found an organic agricultural lime that we're going to be putting down. Now this isn't ideal. Ideally you would mix it in, but I can't deal with ideals at this point. I already have plants in the ground, but I need to adjust my pH level. What does this have to do with the potatoes? Well, it's funny. The potatoes are doing absolutely excellent. Why are my potatoes doing excellent and my garden, this portion of my garden, not doing as great? Well, if you remember when I planted my potatoes, I sprinkled a little wood ash in with each potato that I planted. I actually had a comment, somebody said, hey, if you do that, it's going to raise the pH level and it's going to be too alkaline. They want it to be a little bit more acidic. Well, turns out by doing that, I actually got my pH level right where it needed to be, but I didn't do it for all my other plants. The problem with just using wood ash is wood ash drops the pH very quickly, but for a shorter amount of time. All right, well, we're gonna get some lime down and we'll see you in 1 week and we'll take a look at the garden and we'll see how the garden looks. And that 1 week will happen. All right, well, it's been a week. And I don't mean it's like it's been a bad week. It's just been a week since I checked in last. I have some really great news and we're still working on stuff. Let me explain. Because we use our own homemade compost, I don't know exactly what the percentages are in it. I don't know exactly. I could have it tested, but in a lot of ways, I want to test my stuff by seeing how my plants grow. And the reason for that is I really like to be self-sufficient. I really like to learn from my plants. I like to be able to read my plants, read my animals, see what information they need from them giving me input, if that makes sense. Okay, I know it sounds a little hokey, but this is just how I do it. This is always how I've kind of done things. I've just watched and I've learned from things. And when I see a pattern that I'm not happy with, I try to figure out why it's happening. So everything is not back to where it should be, considering a lot of this was planted a while back, but we're seeing results. My carrots are in love with whatever is going on. They are just super, super happy. I've never had carrots like this, ever. Okay, they're super happy. Okay, over here, we are having some wins and some losses. Okay, the snow peas still aren't doing very good, and to be honest, they're snow peas. I should already have stuff. I may, if I don't get some real results in the next couple weeks, like some real growth, I'll probably rip them out and replant with an edamame, but that's okay. So the other thing we're seeing is we're seeing our beets are happy. For the first time, I actually have growth on my beets, like real growth. Like it looks like they're actually doing something, which is really great. Okay, the Brussels sprouts, they are also looking much, much better. We are starting to see real healthy growth on our celery. The celery is actually looking good. So our lettuces are starting to look good. They're actually growing. We were just stunted. They weren't doing much. Okay, tomatoes and peppers are slightly better, but not completely. We're still dealing with some issues with them. So we got a couple plants that are looking a little better, but we got a couple of the exact same variety that just don't look good on the bottoms. Okay, now we come down here and all of a sudden this one's looking a lot better. Okay, nothing crazy, but it's just looking better. The one thing I'm getting out of all of them is I am getting growth. So the cucumbers are doing really good, and you can see they're looking way healthier than the other cucumbers I had that just died. That tells me that my potting mix is working. All my plant management methods are working. What's not working was my compost. We also planted a new set of broccoli and a new set of kale because both of those were eaten by slugs. I'll just be honest, the slugs got them. And so between the slugs getting them and them not growing at a fast enough rate, they just were done. So I'd already restarted some in soil blocks, so we planted them and they're doing better. I'll show you those, but let me show you the radishes first. Okay, so as you can see, our little radishes are doing very good. They haven't been watered today, so they'll get watered in a little bit. Matter of fact, we even have some carrots over here that are starting to kind of come up, and they are also doing fairly decent. They were planted at the same time the ones down there were, which also made me wonder why these didn't do as good as those. So here's some kale right there, and there's a broccoli right there, and they're doing much better than before. Before they were eaten immediately by the slugs. How did I deal with the slugs? So I dealt with the slugs using a product called Sluggo. It's organic certified, and it doesn't introduce any chemicals into your garden. All it does is kill the slugs, or it actually helps prevent them from eating anymore, which kills them, and it does it in a natural way. You'll see small cabbages and then some big cabbages. Now, is that a watering issue, or is that a plant issue? Is it a nutrient issue? Those are things that I'm working through. It seems like a lot of work to figure all this out. Why don't I just go buy compost from somebody? Well, it comes down to I really hate having to rely on other people to grow food. I like to do things myself. Part of it's being self-sufficient. Part of it is I really feel like we've been lied to as a culture a lot. We've been told that we have to use somebody else's product to get a result. In the past has just been a standard result. So that's one of the reasons why I make my own compost. It's one of the reasons why I try to do as much stuff myself. I don't do everything myself. I bought Sluggo. So not everything I do is mine, but the really big inputs I like to be able to control. I like to be able to know what's going into them, especially since I've heard horror story after horror story of people buying in compost and then having that compost have some type of persistent herbicide in it, and it wrecks their gardens. And so I don't want to deal with that. So that's why I'm dealing with my compost. I know exactly what goes into it. The garden's doing better. We have a strategy. The other thing I did is I bought a little pH tester because I didn't have one. I know it sounds crazy. Why didn't I just spend the $10 and get a pH tester? Well, bad advice. I had a friend of mine tell me, don't buy a pH tester. They're not accurate at all. If you're going to buy one, you need to buy one that is certified by a local university and calibrated by them. It'll cost you $500 or $600. And I thought in my mind, wow, well, that's money to spend. I don't know if I have $500 or $600 to spend on a pH tester. Well, it turned out that person was completely wrong. For what I need, I just need relative data. What I mean by relative data is I can go to my soil block mix, which I know things are growing in excellently. They're all doing wonderful. I can put the pH tester in that, and I can see what that pH level is. Once I see that, I can then go to my soil and see what it compares to. And if my soil is way higher or way lower, I now know I need to remedy or amend the soil based off of that. Now, am I going to get exact data? Well, no, but it's relative data, and that relative data is actually really, really useful because it gives me a way to calibrate against something I know that is working. The other thing it gave me the ability to do is go and test the soils around the property, stuff that has been being planted in by Herman for years. And it turns out almost all of that soil is about 7. I learned so much this week about growing in compost. I couldn't believe the amount of data I was just able to observe and absorb in 1 week while trying to fix my garden issues because my plants weren't thriving the way they should have. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us on A Simple Life. Man, it is absolutely a beautiful and warm day here, and I hope you are having a wonderful time in your garden and on your homestead or your farm. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.